WWE Monday Night Raw last night. It was an okay show, and I really want to dive into that cage match and that ending. So let's talk about that on this episode of Screw the Script. So, real quick, I just want to get out of the way just the other things that happened tonight on Raw. Not very significant other than the cage match that I'll kind of dive into more in detail here in a couple of minutes. But just to run through everything, we had only a couple of other matches tonight. There was a tag match with Rey Mysterio that was okay. We saw Jey Uso and Grayson Waller. That match was fun. I enjoyed that. Jey Uso is a ton of fun with that entrance, which, sometimes I feel like the entrance gets to be a little too much. It goes on a little too long, but it's hype. So, I let it slide for the most part. It's going to be amazing at Mania when he comes out to face Gunther, I believe. Yeah, he's going to be facing Gunther for that title. And I'm looking forward to that. The match tonight, solid match for Raw. He picked up a victory over, was it Grayson Waller, I believe. Austin Theory tried to get involved, but it didn't work. So that kind of furthers that feud. But it's not going to go into Mania. Like I said, eventually he's going to get the upper hand, that feud will end, and then he'll solely be focused on his world title opportunity at Mania. Other than that, again, not very significant things happened tonight. I did like the promo between Logan Paul and AJ Styles. It's very interesting to see those two clash, Styles clash, pun intended. But anyways, great promo between the two of them. It really shows everyone, not just myself, but everyone involved in pro wrestling as fans. We really see Logan Paul really just becoming his own in this company. Whether you like the Paul brothers or not, they generate a ton of money for their respective brands, with WWE with Logan, and then Jake Paul with boxing. Although I really think his boxing fights are fixed, but that's a whole different can of worms. Anyways, great promo tonight. AJ Styles, still great on the mic. We all know he's great in the ring. I hope this does lead up to a Mania match between the two of them. That would be arguably match of the night, whether it's night one or night two, just in terms of pure wrestling, because Logan Paul is really good in the ring. And we all know AJ Styles, the phenomenal one of the best to ever do it in the ring. So I am very interested to see where this goes going forward. And that's really all I had on the card. But let's now next really dive into that main event. So the main event tonight was CM Punk versus Seth Rollins in WWE's version of a steel cage match. Now, I say WWE's version because it's their version, and now this is me to kind of get into it here. I really do not like how the WWE presents steel cage matches. First off, the big gripe that I have, the big problem that I have with their cage matches is, why in the world is anyone allowed to escape the cage to win? Like, I think it's the dumbest concept. You saw the both of them tease each other tonight with it. Haha, very funny. Whatever. But it just doesn't work. I mean, you're in a steel cage match. You should be locked in the steel cage. Yes, I know that's what they have Hell in a Cell for. I get it. But still, steel cage match, you should be allowed to climb the ring and maybe go outside of the ring, but you can't win by leaving the ring. That should not be. I just don't understand that concept. I've always thought it was really dumb, especially when they sell it. Like, they take an hour just to crawl to the door when it's open, when, just in the way that they present the cage matches, every cage match should finish the same, where as soon as one guy gets the upper hand and hits a finisher, just go and ask for the door to be open and boom, it's done. But they never do that, so the psychology of the cage match in itself just makes no damn sense. It really doesn't. And then tonight, just the match itself, I thought it was lackluster. All they really did was hit each other with their finishers. I think we saw the GTS 3 times. We saw the curb stomp 3 or 4 times. A few other moves here and there. They never really utilized the cage. They didn't implement much of it other than a couple of spots with the actual cage itself outside of the ropes. And the biggest spot of the match was I'm just going to call it for what it was. It was honestly just a superplex off the top turnbuckle. That's really what it was. Yes, Punk was laying on his stomach on the top of that cage, but you got to remember the cage is only like a couple feet higher than a fall from a superplex is. So really, was it that crazy? Was it that awesome? Was it that big of a spot? No, it wasn't. CM Punk is almost 47. He's not going to be taking those crazy bumps that we saw at Revolution on Sunday, which that was the better cage match. I'm just going to be honest. As an unbiased pro wrestling fan, I will admit that the last 5 or 6 years, I have leaned towards AEW because I just think as a whole, their wrestling, in terms of just wrestling, they do it better. They just do. They have struggled with, lately especially, with continuation and storylines, with utilizing their top guys, but they have, like I've expressed before, they've had a much better 2025 and ending of 2024. Whereas WWE, on the flip side, I think they have the opposite problem. They do a great job at presentation, great storylines, good promos, but I think they do a little too much of it. They waste a lot of time on Raws like they did tonight. We only saw a few matches for a 2.5-hour show. And I just feel like there's a healthy medium that both companies can improve on, and that's WWE's problem. I know this was just a regular episode of Raw, so comparing this to a steel cage match at pay-per-view for AEW is a little, unfair, but I have also seen cage matches just on a regular episode of Dynamite in the past that was better than this. We all, or at least the people that have seen it, I still remember 5 years ago the cage match that Cody Rhodes had with Wardlow. It was just better. It was presented better. Their rules are different. They don't allow escape from the cage to win. It's either pinfall or submission, or like the person just passes out from a submission. And I like how their ring, so in AEW, if you've never noticed, their ring, the ropes between the edge of the ring is like a foot wider. So when you have these cage matches, it really makes it different for unique spots and unique attacks in the steel cage. And then on top of that, their cage is definitely like a foot or two taller, at least a foot or two, probably even 3. So it's just better over in AEW. Again, back to the main event, I really thought it was lackluster. All we did was see the two of the guys, Punk and Rollins, hit each other with their finishers. If it wasn't for Roman Reigns returning at the end, this would have fallen flat, much like the main event at Revolution did on Sunday night. Again, just a forgettable steel cage match. WWE doesn't do them all too often either, and so when they do them, it should mean something. It should last in people's memory. The only thing that people are going to remember about this cage match was what happened after the cage match. It was Roman Reigns returning, and honestly, more to my point with how poor they present cage matches, and they don't really utilize, and it doesn't show that, that toughness, the grit that you need to go through such a match. Really, even Elimination Chambers, to be honest, aren't that insane like they used to be. And the point that I was trying to make just a second ago is that what happened after the match to Seth Rollins was more brutal than what happened to him in the steel cage when Roman Reigns attacked him and, gave him a curb stomp and gave him a spear, and, all that stuff on the outside looked more painful than anything Rollins took in the cage match, and that should not be the case, but that is how it was presented and how it looked. Now, it was a sour match with a good ending, because it is good to have Roman back. I've always been kind of lukewarm on him, but he is very important to the company, and I recognize that, so it is good to have him back. We will probably be getting the triple threat match that we're all expecting at Mania between these three. I would assume they're going to integrate that as a triple threat going into Mania. But again, I just wanted to express my thoughts on the cage match. Again, very forgettable. I'm not going to ever think about that steel cage match a month even from now. Whereas the AEW steel cage match, that Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher match, one of the best cage matches I've seen in years. It's something that I'll think about looking back at Revolution's past. By next year's Revolution, I always kind of do this with pay-per-views. I always think back to the year prior, like, oh, what was some of the memorable moments from that Revolution, from that or go to WWE from that Elimination Chamber, from that WrestleMania. The steel cage that happened at Revolution, I will remember. The steel cage that happened on this Monday Night Raw, I'm going to forget in a month. The steel cage that happened on one of the very first Dynamites back in 2019, I believe, maybe early 2020 at the latest in the company's history, between Cody Rhodes and Wardlow, I still remember that. That was 5 years ago, people. We are not going to be remembering the steel cage match between Punk and Rollins 5 years from now. The only thing we're going to remember is Roman Reigns returning at the end of it. So that's my piece. Average Raw, but below average cage match at the end. But I do like where things are going with Raw and the feuds on Raw. So I'm hopeful to see where this goes leading up to WrestleMania. We are, like I said, in the thick of WrestleMania season. So the only pass that I may give WWE is maybe they just didn't want to do that crazy of a steel cage match because both these competitors are going to be needed to have a great WrestleMania card. But again, maybe you just shouldn't have done it, especially since you knew that you were going up against a steel cage match the night prior to yours at Revolution, because that cage match was announced over a month ago, I believe. So, again, I don't know if that was anything to do with it. I don't know if they were trying to compete or not. That just could be what my thought is on that. But average Raw, I would give it a 6.5 out of 10. If 5 is average, I'd say a little bit above a 5. Or if you use 7 as an average, maybe 7.5. But an okay Raw. Not going to really think about it going forward except Roman's return. That's all I have on this episode of Screw the Script. This has been Maverick. Thanks for listening.